Hi everybody, welcome to my Cook at Home series with Tonya here at Cooking on the Bay. Today we're cooking a Napoli sauce, a traditional Italian Napoli sauce that was given to me by a lovely old Italian Nona many years ago. Now, before I tell you all the ingredients that are going into this sauce, I'm going to cook my onions because we want to slow cook those for about 10 minutes to get the best flavour from them. So I'm putting them in a cold, dry pot, really. There's one onion here. This is for about 4 serves, this Napoli sauce. So there's the onion. We put in a nice slosh of extra virgin olive oil, and we will have those onions simmering away. We don't want them coloured, we just want them luscious and well softened. We want all the natural sugar in the onions brought out, and we do that by this long, slow cooking. Okay, so you can see that there's a reasonable amount of olive oil in there. We don't want it to dry out while it's cooking. Okay, so I'll just keep an eye on that while I continue talking. So for the Napoli sauce, the first thing we do is roast our capsicum, because we want that oven roasted, and we want to take the skin off and we want to de-seed it. So I would put this in the oven at 180 degrees for 20 minutes. And it will come out looking like this. Now I don't put any oil or anything on top of the capsicum. I simply put it in the oven as it is. And here we have our nicely roasted capsicum flesh with nice flavour. Now we'll get some juice out of this, as you can see. We want to keep that juice. That can go into our Napoli sauce. The idea of the plastic bag is when the skin blisters when it's in the oven, and you put it in the plastic bag so it sweats, and it makes it much easier to come off. This little, I can get that off later. So we'll just open it up, remove the seeds, take out some of that. I can just hear my onions simmering away here. I'll turn that down a bit now. So I've got the skin off the capsicum, good. The odd little seed I don't mind. Goes into the pot. And we'll just finely chop that up. There wasn't as much juice as there is sometimes in this capsicum that we've done. I'll just put that away, try and get my hands clean. So the other ingredients that we have in here, there's a garlic that I've chopped up. There's a tablespoon of oregano leaves, dry basil and parsley. And I have some chopped up parsley there, some fresh parsley, about a tablespoon. And a can of Annalisa tomatoes. Now I like Annalisa tomatoes because they just have tomatoes and tomato juice. I think there isn't an Australian one that actually has the Annalisa. It has just the tomatoes and the water, which is a bit of a shame. And we've got some tomato paste. We're going to have a tablespoon of tomato paste. So after we've cooked the onions for a little while, we're going to add the garlic, but we don't want to add the garlic too soon because we don't want the garlic only takes a minute or two to cook. So the other ingredient that we have here is a vegetable stock cube, a maple vegetable stock cube. Now I usually have in my freezer some homemade vegetable stock that I make, and actually my daughter-in-law usually makes it as well, and when she does it in her Thermomix and makes a large quantity, and she gives me some. I also make it, and I'll put the recipe for it on the website. However, at the moment I don't have any in my pantry, in my freezer, which is a nuisance, so I am using this, which is a very nice flavoursome stock cube. It is, as you can see, there's no artificial flavours, preservatives, colours. It's gluten-free. So as stock cubes go, it's one of the best. So I'll cut up the, oh, there's a little bit of juice in there that you can see. I'll just pop that juice in there. I'm going to just, while we're waiting for the onions, I will just finely slice this. And roughly chop it. It all breaks down in the sauce. The secret of this sauce is the long, slow cooking of the onions, which we'll try and do as long as we possibly can during this short session. And also the long, slow cooking of the tomatoes and the ingredients. They cook for about 45 minutes, just simmering on top of the stove. I'll just keep on checking here. You can hear the nice sizzle of the onions, and I'll show you. They all get quite luscious. And as I said, all the lovely fructose sweetness comes out of the tomatoes. You'll sometimes see in recipes that they will tell you to add sugar to the tomatoes. You don't need to do that at all, to the onions. And the reason they say that is because if you cook them only for a short time, like a few minutes, you need to add the sugar to get the fructose flavour of sweetness, which you don't need when you cook them slowly, because it happens naturally. So we never add sugar to our onions at all. Okay, so now I'm going to add my garlic. You have to pretend that that's been cooking for 10 minutes, okay? So you can see, if you have a look here, Michael, that will just continue cooking like that. That's the colour we want, and you can see it's looking lovely and translucent, but softened and much nicer than just a couple of quick minutes cooking. So I'll add the garlic. The garlic will cook for a couple of minutes as well, but because the heat's quite low, it's also going to slowly simmer in the sauce, so it will nicely cook as we go along. We'll put the capsicum in now too. See that being knocked over. So capsicum. It actually is a very quick to make sauce. It's just you have to wait for it to slowly simmer away and intensify in flavour. So now once we've got that in, we're going to put our tomato paste in. Turn up the heat just a smidgen. Put our tomato paste in, because when you cook with tomato paste, you want to cook out the tomato paste. It needs to be cooked. If you don't cook it for a few minutes on the heat, you'll tend to get a flavour that we don't want. We want a nice, round, smooth flavour. So we say you cook out the tomato. It's just an expression, a bit like cooking out the flour. And we're going to do the same to the vegetable stock cube as well. When you use your own natural vegetable stock cube or paste, you won't have to cook that out because there's only vegetables in it. So we'll cook that for a minute. Break it up. You see that's breaking it up. So the other ingredients that I have here are dried oregano leaves, basil and parsley. We're going to put a tablespoon each of those in. We're going to put the fresh parsley that we have there. I actually have some butter here. This is a butter that we made in another session with garlic and parsley in it, and because I had this left over from dinner last night when we had a steak with this lovely parsley and garlic butter on the top, I decided that I was actually going to add it here. So the Italians out there will have to forgive me adding a butter compound to this classic Napoli sauce, but I'm going to. Okay, so we'll add our... Oh, yeah, this actually about a tablespoon of oregano leaves. My tablespoon's dirty, so some basil. You can use some fresh basil too if you like. I don't have any fresh basil at the moment. In fact, I don't have any dried basil now either. So, I have to go to my nut shop at the South Melbourne market where I get all my dried herbs, but I don't make them myself. Sometimes I do dry them myself. So about the same with parsley. See, that's looking, and it smells quite delicious. And we'll put our can of tomatoes. I use this instead of my homemade tomato passata. And if you are lucky enough to have any that you can use for this, you can use it. I actually do have some homemade passata here, but in my cooking classes I always use a can because I don't have quite enough. Just rinse that out and give it a stir around. Now, we're not going to season this just at the moment because by reducing it down, you could reduce it down so much that it makes the salt makes it too salty. So we won't do that. I may just put my little bit of extra fresh parsley in. Oh, sorry, that's not parsley, that's chives. Okay, so we'll put the chives in. And I'm just going to let that simmer away. The capsicum will end up by softening down and making it into a luscious, rich sauce. I also have here something that I thought you may be interested in while we get this back to the simmer, and I will just have I might have a little taste to start with just to see. It will always need salt. It will need at least a teaspoon of salt. Oh, the flavour from the onion and the herbs is already quite apparent. It is a really lovely sauce. I thought I'd just talk to you about my tomato powder, I call it. It's a lovely, very flavoursome, it's got the most beautiful aroma. We often talk about it in cooking classes, but when I skin tomatoes, whether I do it the traditional French way of scoring them and blanching them, or whether I peel them, I always reserve the skins and I dehydrate them in the dehydrator, and once they're fully dehydrated, I put them through the spice blender or my NutriBullet, and I end up with this lovely tomato powder. It's really flavoursome, so that if your tomatoes are lacking in a little bit of flavour because of the season, say, you could add a little bit of this to the actual Napoli sauce. You can add it and sprinkle it over the finished sauce dish, whichever that happens to be. You could add it to a variety of things, whatever you want an intense tomato flavour. And I was thinking of, with this particular sauce, we could add some mushrooms to it if you wanted to. We could add some meatballs to it if you wanted to. And as I said before, I think, you could use this as a base for your Bolognese sauce. So if you wanted to pan fry your mincemeat or your pork mince and veal mince, whichever mince you're using, pan fry it, get it lovely golden brown, and add this to your Napoli sauce base. It's an intense, beautiful flavour. You could also add some grated vegetables to it too. So you'd add some grated zucchini, you could add some grated carrots. So there's our Napoli sauce. It is lovely. It's such a shame you can't actually smell it because the smell is beautiful. I'm just going to let that simmer away until we're ready to have it with our zucchini noodles, which we'll be doing later on tonight. So bye-bye for now, and do remember that you can actually freeze this. It freezes very well, as you would expect. Okay, bye-bye now. That's all for me. I'll see you next time.